everyone. I'm Barbara Tien with Project Kin, and you've joined us for Kathy's Corner. This is a very special Kathy's Corner, and we have some special topics. You'll forgive my different background today. I am reporting in from a hotel room somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, where I am attending for the personal angle. I am attending the Dragon Con conference for a long and complicated story. And I am joined today from Calgary, Canada, which is in fact, all of Canada is very well represented today. We were noting earlier. From Calgary, Canada is Kathy Stone, the cornerstone for Project Kin. Kathy, each month as Kathy's Corner, Kathy brings us insights into that challenge every family historian and genealogist has had to deal with, and that is the stuff. All of those artifacts, photographs, documents, and materials that we've inherited from loved ones in days gone by. And what do we do? How do we deal with it? Kathy gives us the guidance of a professional in stepping us through that. And today, Kathy's picking up on a new and interesting topic that speaks to one of the key challenges we all get at. Kathy, do you want to take it away?
Sure. I'm just going to see if I can share my screen and not mess the whole system up here. That's
That's
not
okay. You know, I'm going to hassle you to take the slides down so we talk
this
to you
one.
soon,
Oh,
though.
I
Go
will. I'm
ahead.
not going to, I don't
I
have many.
know.
There. Enter full screen mode. What are you seeing? Oh, you're
See you in
seeing.
a slide.
Legacy.
Okay, now I need to move
Legacy,
stuff out of
archive,
the way.
backup, sync. What's it all mean?
I made a word cloud. So we're going to talk about what all these terms mean today because there's so many different words and terminology that we use, and the topic came up in our last Kathy's Corner, and not what we were talking about, but it came out at the end about talking about what do we call these things we're creating, and which terms have meaning and which terms doesn't matter what you use, and all those things. So I thought, well, let's do a Kathy's Corner about it and just talk about some of this different terms. And I'm hoping you'll be thinking as I go along because I got a bit of a cough, a little bit of a respiratory thing going here. So I'm not going to talk for an hour because I'll probably start to cough soon. So I'm just going to try and cover a couple things, and I'm going to tell you which is just my opinion, because a lot of this is can be just your opinion. It doesn't need to be. Some of these terms have specific meaning that's really important, and some of them it doesn't matter what you call them, what you use. The meaning is what says the best to you how to describe your collection. Okay, I got to get my guy here on the right screen. There we go. So I'm going to start with two of them that are really important because these are ones that actually do mean important things, and that's sync and backup. And I wanted to start with those because these are sometimes confused. The two of them is what or misunderstood as to particularly sync, because sync could cause you problems with your collections. Because what a sync is, it's a two-way, the circle, two-way process that ensures any changes made on one device are changed on any other device. So if I'm working in my Google Photos account and I make changes I'm doing this on my phone at the doctor's office, those changes, if it's syncing, are going to change also on my Google Cloud, for, sorry, Google Cloud storage. So I'm trying to step it out there. And so it's important that you understand that what syncing is, because if you go into your phone and use any kind of sync example on there. So if I go into my phone and my phone is set to sync somewhere, and I delete and I go, oh, I put all those photos in my cloud storage last week. I'll just delete them all. And then I go into that storage and I look and went, oh, where'd my pictures go? Because they're all gone. That's how a sync works. Whatever you do on one device makes the change on every other device. A backup, as the opposite thing, only goes one way. And I've used cloud, for example. This could also be, well, you don't really sync to a hard drive, but often, but usually with the cloud. But a backup is exactly that. It's a copy of your files that do not, they don't, it, I back up my computer to an external hard drive. nothing, and then I make changes on my computer, those aren't going to appear on my external drive unless I back it up again. I have to actively change those files. So I think and backup is very important in creating a copy for data safety so you're not losing things. It makes a copy of your existing files. So I think is that a good explanation of the two of them and the difference. So I have a program that I use, and it's an ancient program that was created by Creative Memories right back in the early days of digital, and it was called Memory Manager back then, and its name's changed. So it's a standalone PC product. It doesn't sync anywhere, but it has a little feature in it that will let sync my changes, and it refers to it as a shadow copy, but I have my drive hooked up where this sync copy is located, and any changes I make, it copies those changes to that external drive. But for me, I also keep a backup because if I make a bunch of changes and then go, oh wait, I shouldn't have done that. If it's syncing, my sync copy is going to have all those changes. So occasionally I make a copy of it, particularly if I'm going to do a bunch of work. I'll run in, make a quick backup copy of it so that if something goes badly amiss when I'm doing stuff, that then I can go back to my other copy and I haven't lost stuff. And so I think, does that sound good, Barbara? You're nodding. Good enough for the sync and difference?
Yes, it does. I think we
I'll
may
get you
come
to
back to
ask
this as
Monica
we.
questions for me too, in case people have questions.
Ye-
So I thought I'd start with those two terms because they are ones that have definite meaning and important meaning. So, and so those are ones we don't want to confuse. Couple we were throwing around then where it was legacy and archive, and in terms in here can be like a photo collection, a family heritage collection. There can be all sorts of terms. And I don't think legacy actually has a definition that really is a for, if you use that word, it means a certain thing in certain fields. Legacy is generally, it's a broad term covering all, leaving your legacy, and mentioned in the Project Kin Live, used to be about like the money you left or the things you left behind. And now it's being used a lot in photo organizing and also in storytelling. So I'm leaving my legacy by first of all, my photos I'm leaving and the stories behind them has become kind of legacy. Um, so I'm going to talk. Archive, though, can have a bunch of different meanings depending on what context it's used in. So we can have an archive of our photo collection. Barbara has driven into my head the thing about using archive loosely because in the IT world, an archive is a specific thing. And I don't know if you
Yep.
want to explain what it is, and then
Oh, sure. In fact, both terms have a specific meaning in my world, my IT world, in technology. Legacy will mean old versions of something. So if you have a piece of software and then they introduce a new version that does all of the same functions, it's just a completely
Mhm.
different user interface and architecture behind it. The old version they will refer to as the legacy software. So that's one way that that's used in
Mhm.
technology. Similarly, archive has many meanings, and in technology spaces, particularly engineering documentation, when a big company makes a piece of hardware that sits on your desk or makes software that runs the telephone company, there is some method that they have that archives the work in progress, or rather, they archives the product in its development stages at each little incremental, often daily milestone. And they do that so that if they have to unwind it, they can unwind it without bringing the whole damn thing down. I actually once was in a company where we didn't have a backup of how hardware was made and we had to discontinue it as a result. Kind of embarrassing. Okay. Can Kathy breathe now? You okay?
Yes, I'm good. I had
That's
a
what I'm
couple
here for,
drinks
Kathy. That's what I'm here
before.
for.
Thank you. Um, in the photo organizing world, we're looking at legacy is becoming more in use now. We used to call it a photo collection of like the family photo collection. I've heard it called a photo estate. All sorts of terms. Photo hub, that's a bit of a different thing, but it's becoming more and more legacy is being more used to talk about the the collection that we want to leave behind with our family members. So it's curated. It's a curated collection of our photos, videos, documents, and I include in photos the photos of all of our objects too, our family art objects. And those things that best tell your family history, both your own lifetime and those of your ancestors. You could consider it the single best copy of historical information. Sorry, I'm reading this so I don't lose it. Historical information and stories curated for preservation and sharing. The intent is that this is easily passed on to others. And for me, tends to be a comprehensive collection of all those things, but that may not be part of the legacy. And I think I went back to the old days for something that made sense to me to try and differentiate between the two. So Kathy Nelson, who's the founder of the Photo Managers, an association I belonged to for many, many years, started when she started this, the Photo Manager was Association of Personal Photo Organizers, long, long time ago, and she came up with this ABCs of photo organizing to help work with clients to help them sort their photos. And so what the ABC was an acronym, and it stood for album, box, can, and the S was for stories. And the idea was you had your A photos, those were the ones you would put in an album. Because remember, we're talking many years ago where traditional scrapbooking or album making was a very popular thing for people. But things you'd put in the album, B stood for box, things you wanted to keep but maybe wouldn't go into your album. C was can for garbage, the stuff you wanted to get rid of. And then S was something that may not, in the categories of something that may not be something you'd keep, like a really blurry photo or something, or a really badly damaged one, but it told a story. So that meant it didn't go in the can, it went probably in the box or in the album. And to me, what I like in my mind now, what this connects me to is that the legacy collection is what we would formerly put in the album. All the best things, the things we wanted to make sure that people knew in the future, that they wanted them to see. And for me now, the archive becomes the box. All the other stuff that we have, the family history, the stories, the photos, that may not go in the album, but we still want to keep them because they're important. Barbara has her hand up. But you're muted, Barbara.
There we go. There we
There
go.
we
Sorry
go.
about that. I'm here just to make sure that you have time to breathe.
Yes.
It's funny you put it this way because album and box suggests you have one photo that goes in one place or the other. And in a digital world that we live in here, it can be in two places at the same time without any price other than storage, which,
Mhm.
let's face it, is not really a big deal. I would argue. That's apparently a topic of argument. But anyway, in my view, I've always thought about this like a museum, that a museum has the actual vault. Things in
Mhm.
the vault is the superset of all things. And then they curate and put together a show. And a
Mhm.
show might be like an album. And the difference, of course, is that in a museum there is one object, and it's either in the vault or it's in the show. But also there's the thought of the curation behind it. And at least I work, I often will have multiple shows in a sense that I will have published stories and have albums that I have assembled that tell a story with different audiences all at the same time. But I think
Mhm.
the most important thing is that I have preserved and protected and backed up and archived
Yes.
the actual archive itself.
Yeah.
Given the given event, the given show might be backed up to be sure that somebody else can see it another time and it doesn't get jumbled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I totally
Go
agree.
on.
So I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, actually. Oh, there it is. Stop share. And we'll look
Yay.
at each other again. So if you're not on camera or muted and you'd like to come off camera, feel free. If you don't want to, that's okay too. Um, we aren't going to make you. But so some of the other I think other points in gain when you decide what you want to call it, but then be consistent with it so you're not mixing up the things like you have the thing that is the, for lack of better, the show and tell part, the thing you're showing,
Yeah.
as in your case, Barbara, the recordings, or for me, it's the digital album. And then I have the box where all the other stuff is in, because I might not put absolutely in the legacy digital album, I'm probably not going to put every single photo we own in there. Um, the other point I wanted to know is that both of those things are organized. The legacy collection, the one you want to pass on, is curated. That means we don't everything's not in it. It's built around, in our view, built around telling stories, and so you're putting things in there that have stories that need to be told or tell a story. Um, but a archive or that the box is also organized. It's not just a big mess of everything that you've ever scanned or found or collected. It is also organized. It's not an unorganized, it's not the big mess. We actually call that, believe it or not, in our world, the photo mess, when we gather everything together and still haven't done any organizing or anything. So I would say that the archive should still be organized, or else if it's passed on, um, generally people would prefer not to have your mess, but to know what they're looking at, and it's get better chance of it being kept. You could have a physical pictures could be in like three places, Barbara. They could be in the legacy collection, in the archive, and also in a digital archive and a physical one too. And that's again a matter of what you decide to keep. Like you can have a physical archive of the photos and objects and things too. And then I think we did a session quite a while ago on properly preserving those physical items and archival storage and how we keep those things. And it's becoming something I think now more difficult because people don't have the space, to store all that stuff. And so sometimes some hard decisions have to be made. But also, we're lucky enough to have formal archives and museums that may be interested in some of those things. And I would always go to myself, well, nobody wants this. Like nobody cares about like my family. We weren't anybody. But in fact, there's a lot of things in our background that are part of history, and people
Yeah.
museums are interested in it. So it's
Especially since my mute, no. Especially since these days, AI can go through a collection very, very quickly and say, whoa, you are the only person to have a photo from the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. And you just happen to have this photo of the elephants or something.
Mhm.
And that is not something that could ever be done at any kind of scale for individual collections, but is possible today. I actually have a
Hi, Bill.
question welcome, Bill. As you go through that, I actually have a question for you. And as I recall, this came up back when we did our 8 steps recordings a year and a half ago or whatever it was. Um, when I did a very fast scan of my in-laws' photo collection. Many of those photos, we had a limited time visiting. I took my shot box and I just blitzed through all of their albums to be sure that we at least had a copy of them.
Mhm.
Um, because I was taking pictures of them still in their albums and not risking peeling them out at the time, it meant that afterwards I had to go through and do cropping and so on. So I have the original photos I took, I have the cropped photos I took. I have on many of those, I also have the backsides that I took. Um, I have felt nervous about deleting all of those pre-cropped photos
Mhm.
as if they are better resolution. I might have hidden something. Am I just being paranoid about that?
Not necessarily. I looked at that as, and particularly the backs of photos. So the collection I'm finally working on so I can retire. there was a lot, people, they wrote a lot of stuff on the back of photos. So we digitized the front and the back of all the photos. So now as we're building the curated collection, there's all these backs and fronts and backs and front. And so what we've decided to do is keep the photo itself and make a second copy with the photo. It's half and half. It's got the photo on one side and the back on the other, because that way it gets it permanently attached. Because I think the danger becomes at some point of losing, particularly with backs, of them getting out of order. And then you're like, I have no idea what photo this belongs to. Like, I don't know what this
Yeah.
is. So I
Yeah.
think there is something to be said about keeping the originals too. In terms of the ones that have been edited, I'm also inclined to keep, like, when I return a collection to a client, they get back the raw, what we call the raw scans. And that's the ones that have nothing done. They're not rotated, they're not cropped, they're nothing. They're just the actual things that went through the scanner, whether they went through upside down or not. And I give them all those files for the very reason that as technology improves, they may be able to do much better editing and cropping. And I know with the client I'm working on right now, they have a lot of pictures with you remember me talking about getting all excited about decal edges and the decorative frames around photos in the
Great
40s.
example.
And the difference when you crop the photo and crop the frame off, you get a much better image. And I really struggle with that because I think that's part of the picture. And so the client has decided they wanted them. Well, we have some negative scans and we also scan prints and I'm marrying them up now. And she wants the negatives because they are far better, without a doubt. The quality is much better. But I'm like, I kind of think I'm going to just leave those other scans on your archive there and with those edges on them, because to me, kind of part of the story. So
Yeah. I know certainly when I use them in a story, for example, over on Substack, I kind of like the way you get the decal edges and then you might add a little shading, or it gives you the feel for the picture. And to my view, that's fine to do, but I would never never save that in favor of the original. You keep the original.
yeah,
So okay. Thank you.
okay. Uh, so question for other and people, please ask me questions because, as I said, rather you talk than me this day. Um, what terms do you use? What terms are you using for your collections?
I know Bill has a big collection.
Yeah,
I,
Bill,
I
what do you
know you
call it?
do. Mute button. Oh, there it is.
There we go.
There it is. Um, I just call it my collection. I don't really have, a different term for it.
Yeah, and that's sort of as I said, like something like legacy and everything. That's becoming more in vogue now, if that's the right word for it. Because when I first started doing photo organizing, we called them collections. We didn't like that was it was just the stone collection. There wasn't a legacy, and that sort of become something that uh, is more in used now, I guess. This idea of legacy and people leaving a legacy in the photo management world. I don't like not
Yeah.
saying that's in the world of
To,
genealogy or those things. But
to me, one of the important things on a legacy collection, as you say, you don't want to leave it as a jumble. It's valuable when it's been organized. And one of the most powerful ways to organize it is with facial recognition, to start putting what you do know. Have you or the photo managers done analysis of all of the key applications that are available today, and whether and if any of them are actually embedding that facial recognition information into the metadata of the file itself? I believe, for example, that Google is not too shabby on actual facial recognition. Their interface sucks, but once you
mhm,
figure it out, it sort of does work pretty doggone well. But all that information is entirely separate from the digital file itself.
yeah. Um, I think there's more people saying this one does and doesn't than anybody doing. every so often we go through a thing in the photo manager's world of, well, let's do a comparison chart of everything out. And then it's like, okay, and by the time you get enough people to work a comparison chart, it's out of date and there's a whole bunch of new stuff.
I didn't say
Um,
I was going to do one. I just asked.
I know. So, so they have different ones they like. I know Mylio, I think Bill knows Mylio probably better than me. I believe it does add that information to the metadata or the
Yeah,
photo file itself.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, so it's one that I think a lot of people are recommending and using these days. Forever has, after many years of not having facial recognition, now has it, and it is added to the. It's interesting because they don't. You can download. You have two choices in your downloads. You can just download, like if I want to download a picture because I want to share it on Facebook, I don't need the metadata, and I don't need it to take that long to download. So I can choose just to download the image, or I can choose that I want my metadata downloaded and then it is saved whatever information has been changed. Not all programs do that. There are some that
That's
don't, and so you've got
that
to be
that
really careful.
that would be really interesting information again to
It
have
would, yeah.
across the platform, across the many
Let me
platforms.
see if I can find anybody to do it. And I
I
don't know
know.
Apple Photos. I
I
think
believe
it preserves metadata. I'm pretty sure.
I believe Apple Photos is very intensely non-destructive. In other
Yes.
words, it separates which version, and I don't know if the user has access to which version they download. I can't think
Yeah.
of that interface. I don't use the Apple's own photo. I haven't historically used it. I had a fight with it not too, well, a long time ago. I'm getting over it for a very specific use case. I conceded that it does solve the problem. And the fact that I don't use it has been helpful because I can then use my own account to do this thing. Does any, I mean, Mylio, I know, Bill, again, I know you use Mylio to be picking on you. Do you know if you can separately download a file without, for example, its location information?
I don't know that offhand. I'm pretty sure it just dumps it all in.
Okay. Yeah, most people,
You can go in and edit location
right.
information.
Yes.
Right, right. I know that at Ponga, this was something we had many a discussion about, and we settled on a configuration in one place where you could say, I want to be able to include my location information or not when shared. So you're explicitly share or not share without that.
Yeah.
Um, but we always kept anything modified on the image separate from the original image. But
Well, and that's a good point too, is that if you're using a program for your own your own collection, we'll use collection, and you're also wanting to share, you may not want like some of it you don't
exactly.
necessarily how far like if I'm writing a story, I may not necessarily want my location photo to be pinpointed on the photo. If I'm writing an article to put on
Yeah,
social media and I'm using a photo I took in my backyard, I may not
yeah,
want that out there
yeah,
floating around on the internet in my photo.
yeah.
So,
Oh, actually, this is a really important point for all of you Substack users. If you take a photo from your own collection and use it in your article, it's great. If you're using that article to tell your story and then you're trying to encourage more people to come visit your posts, that's wonderful. Be very mindful of the metadata in your image when you do that. First, it's a really good thing. It's a very valuable thing to include alternative text on
mhm.
any image you add to a post. That's hugely valuable for SEO purposes. But you may be including stuff that you didn't intend to, as you said, your home address, because you happen to take this picture that looked like a butterfly on a flower. You happen to take that picture in your backyard, and now it's 1469 Jones Street. I mean, come on, man. You didn't really need to share that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a delicate business. In all of the articles that I'm doing for my Stories 250, I'm putting photos in every one of those coming from those articles. The first thing I do is to check to see what image data, what data is
Mhm.
with that image when I bring it in. Actually, 9 times out of 10, there's nothing, which is a disappointment because I'm
Mhm.
apparently not getting the word out to add alt data.
Add all this information. Yes.
not naming names.
Yes. And another question I had thought about was, should you sync your legacy collection or your collection, the one you've curated, the one that you want to share with everyone? Because I can't see this ever as being a beginning and an end to my family history. And as I delve further into the genealogy world, I'm like, I don't think there'll ever be a point where I go, done. And I don't even have a big family. Like I don't go, I'm not connected to like Paul Revere or anybody or the Queen or anything. So I don't really have that far to go back. But I'm like, I don't see it as ever being done. And so then becomes a question of should you sync or update that legacy collection as you make changes?
I tell you what I do, because again, I come at this from the product business where you ship a product. There is a point in time when customers can't buy it, and then when they can buy it. If a customer can buy it, it's been published. There was that stamp. And now if I make a change to that, well, it's I don't need to keep the 47 separate versions that there ever were for it. If I don't need to do that, then I will, as to your words, make a sync. I will completely update, essentially destroying
Yeah.
the trail of all of the different changes that I've had. It's perfectly reasonable to do in my view, because having that perfect stamp of this is the latest version. Back in
The
the old
latest
days
version.
when we
Yeah.
shipped software, we had a golden master. When you made a software disk, there's a whole process you go through to make sure it's virus clean, and then you produce a disk. Well, they weren't literally gold, but we
They were.
treated it. There was gold, silver, and bronze in case something happened to each one. And you knew where those were. They were literally stored in a vault. And that thinking is something that I've
Mhm.
always, tried to maintain when you think about that archival step, if it matters what the increments are. If the
Mhm.
increments don't matter, as you say, that's kind of a synchronizing it. So
Yeah.
I've now published the very latest, and that's
Yeah.
all that matters. You don't need to know about my typos
Yeah.
that I went back and fixed. Nobody needs to know.
But I think as you find new information, then that becomes part of it. And I think that's where the danger comes in. Like to me, the collection, the curated thing that's curated. And I was going to talk about there's photo managers have a legacy course that I'm taking, and they mention percentages and numbers of how much stuff should be in your legacy collection. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not. I'm the one when I did traditional scrapbooking, that's my background. And when I had the ABCs, I had the album, the box, and well, not a lot went in the box because I put so much stuff in my albums, and I still do it because I'm still working in the print days, and I just didn't have that many pictures. So it's like, yeah, okay, that's 7 different poses of my kids, but they're doing different stuff on that day. So I was very bad at that part about the disposing. I just like to keep everything. But if you're making, no, I've lost my train of thought there. I don't know. Oh, and
Well,
how
this
much should be in a collection? I don't think you can put a number on it because I'm looking at, like, I've read a lot of Bill's articles on his family history and how much work you've done and how far back you go. Um, so your percentage of what you have for your legacy is not going to be the same as mine when I've hardly done anything like that yet. Or, or if if you're, uh, if like even when I get all our family stories told, because we reach points where with particularly in my mom's side of the family, we don't go back too far in England because the church records burnt up and they were coal miners. And um, I want to add a lot of information that I'm finding now about the whole no coal mining in Durham County in England. But at a certain point, there isn't going to be any stories to dig up from the 1800s about well, maybe I should go back a little, 1700s, let's say, about my,
certainly no photos.
because
Yeah.
there's nothing. We don't know. Everybody's gone that might have remembered. So it's sort of like, well, there won't be that much. So I think the key to me is, um, what do I need in there to tell the story?
You know, the way I see it, since I look at the archive as the sum as 100% of my photos. If my archive is 100% of my photos, then what percent of my photos have I used for telling stories or
Mhm.
exhibits or whatever? I've tried to go through, for example, all of the photos of all of my ancestors at my mother's level and above, essentially my mother's level through my great grandparents. Any photos that I have there, as far as I'm concerned, belong to the superset of all of my cousins. So I have an album based on facial organization. I have an album of all Harger photos on my mother's side. It's just like everything I've got. I've got another one for my dad's side.
Yeah.
And I share that link to anybody who cares.
Hmm.
So is that an album? You know what? To me, not really, because it's not like they're organized to tell stories. In fact, there's a lot of duplicates in there. There is junk. I should go through and clean out junk,
We'll call
but
that a work in
not,
progress.
it is, well, um, I'm not actually working. I mean, literally, I'm not actually working on them. And generally using Google Photos, it does duplications, scumming, cleaning, though not aggressively, which is a good thing because
Mhm.
we have variations of things. Um, and the stories where I love using Substack for the stories, for actual stories. Or I might have used a whole bunch of photos to create a publication, to create an object, to create a calendar, to create a published thing. I'm not putting those back into Google Photos. That's a terrible place to really keep my archive.
Mhm.
I did this thing and it's put away and this is the archive copy of that thing. To me, that's a different category. That's a special thing. It's a special place to be putting things.
Mhm.
So I have those in, you know, a different place. Other comments?
I had another one on there and I was going to say something and I forgot what it is already.
That's okay. I'm still tap dancing.
Well, no, well, I was back on the topic of sharing because I've got right now they're set up like albums, but they're online and they're not curated yet. But I've decided that I wanted to put all the photos up that I have digitized, that I've found, the whole bit, all the digitized stuff that go back that are my like my cousins' ancestors, my grandparents, all of our my aunts and uncles and beyond. And because I want to share it. And even though my ideal world, I would share a completely curated collection. But then I go back to another point is who am I to curate? I can curate my own part, but who am I to curate their parent? And a lot of the pictures I got are from my aunts and uncles. Shouldn't one of like their descendants do the curating there? Because my stories about my mom are different than a cousin might tell about my mom, who was her aunt. There's
Yeah.
different, and my perspective of my aunts and uncles might be different than the stories that their family want to tell. So I just thought, you know what? It's all up there. I'm sharing it. Do with it what you like. I eventually will work on it and get it. That's the plan, the retirement plan. The photo manager working on her own photos will be to at minimum rotate them so they're up the right way, but also to edit some need editing, and there's some stuff I need to rescan because some of it got scanned, I think I mentioned before, a long, long time ago with a really expensive Epson scanner that's the scans are the size of postage stamps because that was what the technology was back 30 years ago. But
Right.
it's I think the importance of sharing it has struck me more as time goes on that I need everybody to be able to have access to this. And one of the was something that I didn't even I may have known this, but I think I forgot. So he would be my cousin's son, and I'd shared a picture of something event that had him and his brother in it on Facebook, just something. It might have been my grandparents' wedding anniversary that my grandfather didn't go to, their big party, and his comment back was, "Oh wow, is that ever cool?" He says, "Because of the house fire we had." He says, "I don't have any pictures from of me and my brother growing up," and I'm like, "Oh, I've got." So I'm now making a special effort to find more pictures for him because I, if I knew they had a house fire, I've totally forgot about it. And I went, yeah, you know what? you gotta let people have these things. And my brother-in-law has decided to, he's taken up in his retirement, he's painting. And he had painted a picture of his mom. And I went, that is from a photo, I could tell. And I thought, oh, I better share all the millions of photos I have of digitized because I digitized all her photos. I should share that with him because he could do more painting of pictures of Joan. So I think that becomes really, really important.
It's so true that you have you know, 5 years ago even, we would talk about your photo collection and which app are you using? Are you using Apple Photos? Are you, as if that's the only place that your photos exist, which is of course crazy. It's not true. A photo app is just one place where those digital files live for a certain purpose. And once in there, you can do things like AI-based search, visual searches of them. But when a cousin borrows your photos, takes, grabs that link online, does something with them to create a project, and then shares that project back with you, it seems to me having a thoughtful, structured place to
Mhm.
store that digital file is really important. And I think this is a lot of the stuff that Anne Larkham talks about. Now, you spoke to
Mhm.
her as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Just let me pull up her. So Anne couldn't join us. Anne Larkham normally joins us, and I sent her a note and said, "Will you talk a bit about your photo structure for us at Kathy's Corner?" And she said, "Oh, I can't make it today, but I'll send you notes." So she sent me some notes. Barbara has a copy too. If I can't read the whole thing without starting a coughing
I'll
fit here,
include it.
but she calls them too, Bill. She refers to them as her photo collections. And she divided it into what she calls a physical photo collection preserved in photosafe material. So that's the physical stuff. And she's got that into family history photos divided by lines, family lines, recent photos that aren't history, but it's hard to, where does the dividing line? That's always the question. Where's it start to be history? Because I've seen that before. Like, what if you're thinking that 1980 was 10 years ago? It's now really not. It's history now. So, and then she's got. And I laughed at this because I might have the same problem. Purchased photos, her collection of irresistible buys, and I may have purchased photos in my collection too that I have to put note. I have a big note on the folder they're in that says these aren't our family. So don't be hunting trying to figure out who these people are down the road. But you can
We've all
find
been
cool
there.
stuff in the old thrift shops and everywhere. And then she has something called a digital photo hub, which is a term we use a lot in photo managing, which is the master digital family history collection. So from those photos she's copied and the digital ones. She includes digital only and digitized, divided into family history and photographs again. And in that master collection are all of her photos,
Yeah.
everything that's digital. Then she has a master recent, master purchased, and a temporary photo collection, project photo collection, which has all the copies of master photos that she's using to edit and use in projects. So she's not working on, and I think this is really good advice too, is if you're doing a project, an article, whatever, don't take your master photos and out of that master collection.
Take a copy.
Take a copy out. And it seems you don't want 100 copies, but you also don't want to be touching your masters, which goes back to the editing thing where I would be inclined to keep my originals because, like you said, you never know what advances will be made in the ability to edit stuff.
And
And then she has a gathered collection. No, the temporary one that she's working on projects, a gathered collection, which is a holding place for new things before they get organized and moved to the proper collection. And that one is a move there, not a copy and put there, but it's just sort of a holding spot. It's like, this is what I need to work on next. I have really a big one of those, what I need to work on next. And then for backup, and she also has a personal archive collection that she shares with family and gives access to that they can add and put things in and download things. And then she uses two cloud backups. for the digital photos and an external hard drive for it to back up that whole master collection. And the physical photos are all digitized and saved on in her digital photo hub and archived. So I think that's a really solid structure
Yeah.
that
And,
Anne describes here.
so this is Anne Larkham, who many of you may know as the photogenealogist, and she's quite active on Blue Sky and had been previously on Twitter or X under that name as well. Um, One of the things I think is so important about that approach, whether you literally follow that approach, it's really important to think those kinds of things through, because I think intuitively all of us follow some bits and pieces of these elements
Mm.
as we go through, but thinking about it as a big picture from someone who's been considering it for a long time, like you and Anne in your own ways, it's really, really helpful. I know I'm off to a couple of projects after this based on what you've suggested, based on how we go through this. I think about big projects coming like a wedding where you're going to have, or a family reunion or something like that, where you walk away with 600 or more photos. What are you doing with the 600 or more photos? What gets sorted into what? And how are you managing those, from naming people to remembering the event? And, where are moving, where is copying, where is archiving, where is backing up, where is sync? Those are really important.
Yeah. And I think, and that's just, and I like Dan's thing because that's something I didn't talk about in backups, but that's kind of what we recommend for photo managers is at least 3 copies. And the
Yeah.
one might be on your computer, it might be on an external, then you have another copy on another external, and then you have a copy in the cloud, or possibly, if you don't like the cloud, have another hard drive somewhere that's not your house
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
fires. And so,
Fires.
or
Yeah.
theft. I had a friend of mine who had, we used the same software for years, and she was a scrapbooker too. Unfortunately, she had her scrapbooks, but she had all her stuff was on external hard drives and her Mac. She was an Apple user, and she'd got all the pictures out of her PC programs and everything. And somebody broke in her house and took her computer and all her hard drives. So it's you just
Yeah.
never know. It's so the offsite backup. I had an offsite backup for a long time. I had one. I had a neighbor and I just left a copy of stuff. I just left whatever
Yeah.
I'd update it when I was going away in particular, but I still have
Yeah.
my backups. And I use a backup service because it became easier than um, I just have it backs up my whole entire computer,
Yeah.
including my hard drives and everything else. So I don't have to worry about doing that, updating that
Have
back all the time.
Have you ever had to use it?
Yes, I
That's
had
how
to
you
use
know
it
it
last
works.
fall. Yeah, I had to use it
So
because
have
I
I.
got something on my computer. I either got a virus or I got malware or I got ransomware and just missed all the emails trying to make me pay to get my access back to my computer. But in the end, um, in spite of the bestest efforts of my techie son, we could not get back into my Windows account into my computer at all. And so
Yeah.
we ended up doing a cold reinstall of Windows. And
Yeah.
so I didn't lose anything. What I was getting back from backups were things that weren't put away. Like I had a bad habit of putting things in downloads and never moving them to where they belonged because in my computer, all my files are on a separate drive. My C drive just has the programs, but it surprisingly had a lot of stuff
Yeah.
and things in there. So I did actually have got a bunch of stuff back from Backblaze, but I know other people
Yeah.
who've had to like get a whole hard drive sent back because they didn't have everything was gone
Yeah.
on the computer. Like
Very important.
your
Yeah.
dies, like mine, that was nothing wrong with the computer. It was just somehow they managed to lock me out of my Windows account and couldn't.
Money well spent. Yeah. I can't live without that. I use Backblaze for the current backup, and I
Yeah,
also use 1Password for managing
yeah,
10,000 accounts, which, when you talked about work in progress, I had a little bit of a heart failure there, because to me, you can casually refer to, well, that's still underway. That's okay. But work in progress is a very specific term to me because it refers to the thing that might be in a sync stage as you're working it, because it's a syncing to that thing that is keeping
Yeah.
copies of it while you're working. When I work on a project, for the most part, there you go. Aaron has chimed in with, I learned 3-2-1, 3 copies, at least 2 different media, and 1 offsite. That's exactly right. Critical message to that. Thank you, Aaron. That's absolutely right. I find that, and this is a little bit of a recent aha, I'll be honest, but may keep my photo apps in photo apps, and I use actually both Google Photos and Apple Photos at the same time because that I use on my mobile device. And I do a sync and I do a backup, right? So those are 2 different functions. And then when I work on a project, I can't think back. I'm either working on a project in Canva, or I use Canva and then pull it into something like Substack, which are entirely separate. Google Photos, Apple Photos don't know anything about that. So they are getting their own sync as I'm working on it. But then when I'm done, what am I doing? Just because I don't trust any of those apps. Once it's done, I then make an archival copy of the thing that I did.
Yeah.
And my archival copies is the one that always I feel a little bit guilty because it's not always as clean as it should be. And I use the download folder on my Mac as a little bit of a temporary space.
Yeah.
So I allow myself to put it there, but if the next day I see Mac shows me, today's download and then yesterday's download, last week's download, and if it is in anything less than if it's more than a month old, I should be able to throw it away. I just always should be able to throw it away. And I sometimes do that with like videos
Yeah.
because 500, 700 megs, sooner or later it's going to eat up a lot of space.
Well, I had learned by experience the same thing about Canva. So when I mentioned that I'm doing the fronts and backs of photos and then saving that as an image for this collection. And I went into was looking to do the slides here. I was looking for my logo. And I went in there and I click on uploads. And I have every single picture that I copied and all the backs are all sitting in my Canva account now. And I went, oh, wow, I'm going to have to clean that out of there. And there's hundreds and I'm not even
Actually,
anywhere near
ask,
done. I was just like, oh, great, there's something else I need. So I deleted a whole bunch of the time, but it's
but
like,
wait. Here's my question. What does it matter if it remains in your uploads file on Canva? You don't have a
well,
limited memory space.
partly I do, but they're not mine. They're not my photos. This is
Oh,
client
fair.
work. So
Totally
I
fair.
don't, yeah, I don't want them. And then
Yeah.
yeah, I need to get rid of them because they're not my.
Commingling is messy, very messy. Don't do
Well, it's
that.
very messy because I hadn't set folders up because I
Oh,
didn't have a whole lot uploaded. And then I'm like, oh, I'm trying to
yeah.
find
Yeah. So,
my
yeah.
logo and it's buried under the last
Yeah.
200 photos here.
Hey, a tip, create another account. If you don't need the fancy features, create a separate account. I'm serious. I'm serious. I'm a big one since I'm platform independent.
Yeah.
I tell you how to take advantage
And
of
I think what the
platforms.
important thing is there is don't rely on those as being your backups. When
Never.
you have to take stuff, because a lot of people were, when Costco Photo decided not to have Costco Photo anymore, a lot of people were like, hey, I've got free storage at Costco. And they got their memo saying, no, as of this date, your files are all getting deleted. They're gone.
Right. Right.
We weren't offering storage.
Right.
And so a
So,
lot of people then were panicking and
yeah.
now, and Shutterfly is the same.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean,
those are storage sites.
everybody that's been in that cloud business in one way or another, from HP to Shutterfly to whatever, to even Amazon Prime, anybody that's been in that business has at one point or another declared they're not going to do it anymore
Yeah.
and toasted people's files. So never, ever trust that. But I would argue, as I just did with respect to Canva, is as a short-term work in progress. It's kind of like
Mhm.
the downloads folder. You
Yeah.
can set it and forget it. I wouldn't waste any time in my account anyway. I don't waste any time deleting stuff out of my uploads folder, and I'm doing gigabits at a time.
Yeah.
So I really don't, because it's waste time for me.
Yeah.
But I totally understand why, if you're mixing client work with personal work, that gets
Mhm.
messy. So
Yeah.
always being mindful of client work. And again, privacy to files, all the information that's in those files, where all your temporary files are, big deal. Definitely a
Yeah.
big deal. So we've covered a lot of topics today, and we're coming to the close of the program. I've just been talking. My intent here, Kathy, was to give you breathing space.
Thank you.
So forgive me for interrupting. Do any of you have any questions or comments? You're all muted and silent. Go ahead
Quiet.
and chime in. Come on, Marcy, I see you giggling there. Bill, feel free. Aaron, thanks for your comments. Yeah, mute button.
There we go.
There we go.
Hi. Well, I don't have much voice, but I just recently got into using my Heritage's photo program.
Fancy
And-
features.
Yeah. And I'm just putting in the stuff I need for family history, for the tree. So that's been, I don't know if they will stop at some point, or whether when I go to renew, well, if you want to keep all your photos, you've got to pay so much, but we'll see. I'm not going to, worry about it because I still have everything actually in my Apple photos.
And that's the key point, is that you
That's
still have them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's a great example of something I would regard as work in progress. I have a lot of garbage in my Canva account that was work in progress until it wasn't, and then it was the perfect one, and then I download it and put it in the archive. But just you never want to trust any third-party software platform to be there for you, even Apple Photos and Google Photos. That was a point that Anne made 18 months ago or something when we had one of these conversations, and I was like, I guess I should be doing that. And then she would ask me, I have now done that. And Google has a takeout plan. It's painful to do, but it does work to take out your files, which, by the way, also is great for your Google Docs, your spreadsheets, all of that. I think it's something that is a routine that you can even schedule and have it do it for you. I know, Bill, you come from the IT world and have a more practical experience than I do in managing that. Any tips of wisdom?
No, I mean, Aaron was right, in terms of 3 copies. I go a little further than that. I use 2 different cloud storage vendors, just because I don't trust anybody. And I was glad to hear you ask Kathy if she had done a restoral from backing up her computer, because a backup is worth absolutely nothing unless you've tested it.
That's right. And usually you don't test it until you've failed,
Yeah.
because otherwise it was just a little test.
Yeah.
And then you pray that it works. Because doesn't always. But no, I've got two different vendors in the cloud that I use. I 2 different removable disks that I go back and forth between the 2. Then one's offsite, one's always here, and I just trade them out. You can't you can't have too many backups, basically.
Totally agree.
But you can fool yourself if you don't understand your own system. So if you have so many systems, you're like, I'm covered. No, well, are you?
Yeah, no, and I automate the backups too. It's having the greatest system in the world on paper doesn't do you any good if you don't back up regularly. And so once a week I'm sleeping, my backups are running. I can't Can't stress how important that is.
Mhm.
And I do it once a week. You probably could do it once a month.
Yeah.
But you want to ask yourself how much work you're comfortable with losing. Because
And how long would it take you to recover?
yeah, because everything you've done since the last backup is nowhere.
Yeah.
If if your system dies on you. So I don't like to try to go back and recreate things if I can avoid it. So I
Mhm.
back up more frequently.
You know, about the time of the fires down in Los Angeles, Arn Youngless did a fabulous post about taking the time to back your own stuff up and to walk around your house with a video camera, with
Oh
your
yeah.
phone as your
Mhm.
video camera, to capture what stuff is and where it is. I'll try to remember to include those in the notes as well, in terms of the backups and archives. And while I've got your attention on that point, all of you creating your own Substack publications, remember, Substack may be fairly reliable, but they can toast your account. It has happened. And I don't know the circumstances over what and how, but it's just a good idea. If you go into your publications, go into your subscribers, go into export, there's a three-dot menu where you can export your subscribers. And when all you're doing is downloading a CSV file of everybody that has been a subscriber, I put that into a file folder called backups. Wow. Any
Well,
last questions? Go ahead,
I have a
Kathy.
last comment actually that I almost forgot
Perfect.
about until you mentioned the fires in California. So, um, next month is Save Your Photos Month. It started off as something that some photo managers created a long time ago after the Joplin tornadoes and the big flooding we had here in High River and southern Alberta. So I kind of had involvement in it. So it's kind of near and dear to my heart. And it's so Save Your Photos Month. It's now a thing. It's on the national holiday calendars now, so it's expanded itself. But during September, the photo managers are offering a whole variety of sessions for free with a variety of different people that are on different aspects of preserving photos. And I know there's one whole one on doing the filming and the back. I know there's a whole session on that, and some very, very good sessions, and you'll find pretty good presenters doing that. I'm not doing that anymore, but except I'm going to talk about that in Kathy's Corner next month in honor of Save Your Photos Month. I'm going to talk about what to do with damaged photos, not in terms of if you have a massive flood or a fire. That's a whole different thing that I do talk about and teach quite a because I've done a fair amount of it, but what to do if you have things in your collection that have some kind of damage in either water or sticky. Sticky is usually the biggest one. They're stuck to a frame, but just some tips on what to do with that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going
Yay.
to do next month. Let's talk about that. So, and I think Barbara's going
Yay.
to put in the link for the free stuff with Save Your Photos month.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much, Kathy. This has been fabulous as always. I think it all does start with our photos and making sure that we remember where stuff is and what all the different terms are is a huge, huge part of getting that right. Thank you all for joining. I want to remind you that we'll be back online on Sunday. I have another Substack Live session this time. My special guest will be Shel Norman, who many of you know for a book she recently published, My Father's Daughter. And our topic will be how to be telling stories about, frankly, those difficult subjects.
Mm.
It can be a very, very difficult thing to write about, and has one who has done that and even published a book going through it. She will share some of those insights for us. I'm really looking forward to it as one of our own. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. There's that link
And
for
if
you.
anybody wants to go check it out right now before the
I
recording comes
know,
out.
because you know what? It takes me a few minutes to get these videos done. I'll have it
Well, and I
out and
know you're
published.
dragon conferencing right now, so I
Yeah,
might be a little
Dragger.
bit
Yeah.
busy checking out all
I
the
still should have it
animation.
out before dinner for me.
It's
So I
now a
should have it
secret
out in
we've
a
all
couple
learned about
hours.
Barbara.
What?
It's a secret we've learned about you that you like to go to these anime conferences and
I'm a
things.
nerd. There's a secret. There's a big secret. Nobody will know. All right.
Thanks,
All right. Now you're getting
everyone.
too
Thanks
personal.
for coming.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining. Thank you. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.